Hana stood at the front of the classroom, her hands folded neatly behind her back as she looked out at the most unusual collection of students she had ever seen. The classroom on Kepler Station was enormous, with high ceilings that seemed to stretch into darkness above. Strange lights floated near the ceiling, providing a soft blue glow that worked for all the different alien eyes in the room. Her students were not human, not even close. In the front row sat Clickteth, a Kithara whose insect-like body gleamed under the lights. Her forearms moved constantly as she took notes, and her large compound eyes never seemed to blink. Behind her, a Zephyrian student named Veltar sparkled like a living crystal, his body shifting colors as he thought. The gas-based Nebulon student, Wisfin, floated in a special containment suit that let him attend class with the solid beings. 12 different alien species sat in her classroom. All of them were the best military students from their worlds. All of them were here to learn about planetary defense from the newest member of the Galactic Council, humanity. Hana was nervous, but she did not show it. She had been chosen for this job because she was good at teaching and even better at staying calm under pressure. What her students did not know was that she had other skills too, skills that Earth needed her to use. "Good morning, class," she said in the universal translator that made her Korean words understandable to everyone. "I am Hana, and I will be teaching you about comparative planetary defense strategies." Admiral Vextar sat in the back corner of the room watching everything. He was a tall, blue-skinned alien with 6 arms and eyes that seemed to see everything at once. He did not trust humans yet. The Galactic Council had only accepted Earth 5 years ago, and many aliens still thought humans were too young and too weak to teach anyone about war. Clickteth raised one of her 4 hands. "Teacher Hana, we have read about human military history. Your species has many wars. Can you tell us about Earth's current defense systems?" Hana smiled softly. "Well, that depends on many things. What kind of attack are you thinking about?" The insect alien clicked her mandibles together, which was how her people showed confusion. "I mean your space defenses, your orbital platforms, your fleet positions." "Humans have learned that defense must fit the situation," Hana replied. "What works against one enemy might not work against another. We tend to adapt our methods based on local conditions." Admiral Vextar frowned. This was not the kind of detailed answer he expected from a military instructor. The previous teachers had given exact numbers, showed detailed diagrams, and explained precise tactics. This human woman was being evasive. Veltar, the crystal being, chimed in with a sound like ringing bells. "But surely you have standard procedures? Basic protocols that all human forces follow?" Hana walked closer to the students, her steps quiet on the metal floor. "Tell me about your homeworld, Veltar. What is it like?" The crystal alien's colors shifted to a pleased blue-green. "Zephyr Prime is beautiful. We have crystal mountains that sing in the wind and valleys filled with resonance pools that amplify our thoughts." "And how would you defend such a place?" Hana asked. "Well, we would position harmonic barriers at the resonance points and use the mountain crystals to create defensive networks." "Exactly," Hana said. "Your defense fits your world. Humans believe that every place needs its own kind of protection. We do not use the same plan everywhere." Clickteth was getting frustrated. Her compound eyes reflected the light as she spoke. "But what about space combat? Surely human ships have standard weapons and tactics." Hana paused, looking thoughtful. Human ships carry many different types of weapons, yes, but we have learned that the best weapon is often the one your enemy does not expect. Sometimes the best defense is to make your enemy think you are weaker than you really are. The classroom fell quiet. Admiral Vextar made a note on his datapad. This human was either very wise or very foolish. He could not decide which. Let me ask you all something, Hana continued. If you were planning to attack an enemy planet, what would you want to know first? Wisfin, the gas being, spoke in a voice like wind through caves. We would need to know their defensive positions, their weapon types, their fleet strength. Good. What else? Clickteth's mandibles clicked as she thought. Supply lines, communication networks, backup plans. Excellent. And where would you get this information? The students looked at each other. Finally, Veltar answered, Spies, scouts, intelligence gathering. Hana nodded. And how would you protect against such intelligence gathering? By keeping our defensive information secret, said a student from the back. This was Mordek, a reptilian alien with scales that changed color with his emotions. Right. Now, they were a worried yellow. But how do you train your defenders if everything is secret? Hana asked. How do you make sure your defenses actually work if you never test them? The class was quiet again. These were smart students, and they were starting to see the problem. If you kept everything secret, your own people could not learn. But if you shared information to teach people, enemies might learn too. This is why humans prefer adaptive strategies, Hana said. We train our people to think, not just to follow orders. We teach principles, not just procedures. Admiral Vextar was beginning to understand why Earth had sent this woman. She was not giving away military secrets, but she was teaching something valuable. She was showing the alien students how to think like humans. For tomorrow, Hana said as the class time ended, I want each of you to design a defense plan for a planet you have never seen. I will give you basic information about the world, and you will create a strategy. Remember, think about what makes sense for that specific place. As the students filed out, chattering in their various languages about the assignment, Admiral Vextar approached the teacher. That was interesting, he said. Your teaching methods are quite different from what we are used to. Hana bowed slightly, a human gesture of respect. I hope the students will learn something useful, Admiral. Yes, Vextar said slowly. I believe they will. Though I wonder what you might learn from them as well. Hana's expression did not change, but something flickered in her eyes for just a moment. I always enjoy learning about different cultures and their approaches to problems. It helps me become a better teacher. That evening, Hana sat in her small quarters on the station, typing a report on her secure communication device. She wrote about the classroom, the students, and their responses to her questions. But she also wrote about other things. She noted which species seemed most concerned about orbital defenses, which ones asked about fleet movements, and which ones revealed information about their own homeworlds when they got excited about the discussion. Earth needed to understand its new neighbors. The Galactic Council was full of species that had been traveling the stars for thousands of years while humans were still learning to make fire. If Earth was going to survive in this larger universe, it needed to learn everything it could about potential friends and enemies. Hana's job was to teach, yes, but teaching was a two-way process. Her students would learn about human adaptability and strategic thinking, and she would learn about them. She finished her report and sent it through the encrypted channel back to Earth. Tomorrow would bring another class, more questions, and more opportunities to learn. Hana looked forward to it. Outside her window, the stars of the galactic core sparkled like distant jewels. Somewhere among those stars were the homeworlds of her students. Soon, she would know much more about those worlds and how to protect them, or how to attack them if it ever came to. That Hana hoped it would never be necessary. But hope was not a strategy. Preparation was. 3 weeks had passed since Hana began teaching at the Galactic Council Academy, and her students were starting to get used to her unusual methods. Instead of giving them textbooks full of battle plans and weapon specifications, she made them think through problems step by step. Today's lesson was about defending asteroid mining operations. Hana had put up a holographic display showing a fictional asteroid belt with mining stations scattered throughout. "So," she said, walking around the classroom as she spoke, "your job is to protect these mining operations. Clicketh, what do you think is the biggest threat here?" The Kathra student's forearms moved as she thought. Pirates, probably. They would want to steal the refined metals. Good. And how would pirates attack this kind of target? Fast ships, hit-and-run tactics. They would not want to fight a long battle. Hana nodded. What else might threaten a mining operation? Veltar, the crystal being, chimed in. Sabotage. Someone could damage the equipment or contaminate the ore. Excellent. Now, Wisfin, on your homeworld, how do your people protect important facilities? The gas-based alien's voice came through his containment suit like wind through a tunnel. We use detection networks, many small sensors that watch for intruders. On Nebulos, we spread ourselves thin and wide to see everything. Hana looked interested. How thin? How wide? Could you cover an entire star system? Oh yes, easily. We can extend our consciousness across vast distances. My people can monitor space traffic from the edge of a solar system to the inner planets. Fascinating. And this works even in areas with lots of interference, near asteroid fields or nebulas? Wisfin seemed pleased to talk about his people's abilities. Interference makes it harder, but we adapt. We learn to read the patterns in the cosmic dust and solar winds. Hana made a note on her teaching pad. To the students, it looked like she was recording good teaching points. But Admiral Vextar, who still sat in the back of the classroom during every lesson, was starting to notice that her questions were very specific. On Earth, Hana said, humans have learned that the best defense often uses the environment itself. We try to make the place we are defending work for us, instead of against us. Mordek, the reptilian student, raised his clawed hand. Can you give us an example, Teacher Hana? Well, that depends on the specific situation, she replied with her usual vague smile. But let me ask you this. Mordek, your people come from a desert world, correct? The reptilian alien's scales shifted to a proud orange color. Yes, Zerion is mostly desert. Beautiful red sands and crystal formations. And I imagine your people are very good at moving through that environment without being detected? The best in the galaxy, Mordek said with obvious pride. We can travel under the sand for days without leaving any trace. Our military units can move entire armies across the desert, and enemy satellites never see them. How do you manage supply lines for such operations? Hana asked casually. We have underground cache networks placed years in advance, and our people can survive for long periods without water or food. Hana nodded thoughtfully. And if someone wanted to find these caches, would that be possible? Mordek's scales darkened slightly. Only if they knew the exact frequencies our mapping devices use, and that information is kept very secret. Of course, Hana said. Security is always important. Meanwhile, far across, The station in the intelligence section, Commander Jang Minho was reviewing some unusual data requests that had come through the educational department. Someone was asking for detailed star charts, planetary composition reports, and even some military base location data. The requests all had proper authorization codes and were marked as being for curriculum development by the exchange program. But Minho found it strange that a simple teaching assignment would need so much detailed information about council member worlds. He pulled up the request logs and cross-referenced them with class schedules. The pattern was interesting. Most of the requests came in the evening after classes ended, and they seemed to focus on the same species that were represented in the exchange program classes. Minho made a note to investigate further. It was probably nothing, but his job was to be suspicious of everything. Back in the classroom, Hana was wrapping up the lesson with one of her thought exercises. "For next class," she said, "I want you to design a defense plan for a water world. The planet is mostly ocean, with small island chains and underwater cities. Think about how the environment affects both attack and defense." As the students gathered, their materials, Clicketh approached the teacher's desk. "Teacher Hana, may I ask you something?" "Of course. In all your lessons, you ask us many questions about our homeworlds and our people's abilities, but you tell us very little about Earth's defenses. Why is that?" Hana considered the question carefully. "What do you think, Clicketh? The insect?" Alien's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "I think you are a very careful teacher. You make us think instead of just giving us answers. And why might that be a good teaching method? Because when we think through problems ourselves, we remember the lessons better, and we learn to solve new problems, not just repeat old solutions." Hana smiled. "You are a very good student, Clicketh." But as the Kythera student left the classroom, she was thinking about more than just teaching methods. She had noticed that Teacher Hana's questions were always very specific, and they always seemed to reveal important information about each species' capabilities and weaknesses. That evening, Hana was in her quarters again, writing another report. This one was much longer than usual. She had learned that nebulons could extend their consciousness across entire star systems, making them perfect for early warning networks. She had discovered that Xerion's underground cache system could be disrupted if someone knew their mapping frequencies. And she had confirmed that Zephyrian crystal formations could be used for long-range communication networks. Each piece of information was small by itself, but together, they were building a detailed picture of the Galactic Council's defensive capabilities and potential weaknesses. As she typed, Hana thought about her real mission. Earth was the youngest member of the Galactic Council and the weakest. Humans had only been in space for a few hundred years, while some of these species had been traveling between stars for millennia. If there was ever a conflict, Earth would need every advantage it could get. Knowledge was the best advantage of all. Her teaching assignment was perfect cover for intelligence gathering. She could ask questions that would seem suspicious coming from a spy, but were perfectly natural coming from a teacher trying to understand her students. And her students were eager to share information about their worlds and their people. The best part was that she really was helping them learn. Her teaching methods were making them better strategic thinkers. Even Admiral Vexitar had started to look impressed during her lessons. Hana finished her report and encrypted it for transmission to Earth. Tomorrow she would ask more questions, and her students would give her more answers. Each lesson brought new intelligence about the species that surrounded humanity in this vast galaxy. She looked out her window at the stars and wondered which of those distant suns might someday be allies and which might be enemies. Her job was to make sure Earth would be ready for either possibility. The universe was a dangerous place, and humanity was still learning its rules. But humans had always been good at adapting, and they were very good at learning from others, even when those others did not realize they were teaching. Dr. Kim Jisoo rubbed her tired eyes and stared at the massive display screens that covered the walls of the Strategic Analysis Center. The Galactic Defense Grid was her responsibility, and tonight something about it was bothering her. The grid was a complex system that monitored threats across Council space. It tracked ship movements, analyzed attack patterns, and suggested defensive positions for Council fleets. The system learned and updated itself constantly, getting smarter as it processed new information. But lately the updates had been strange. Jisoo pulled up the modification logs and scrolled through the recent changes. 3 days ago, the system had suddenly improved its threat assessment for asteroid mining operations. It now included new defensive scenarios that accounted for sabotage, underground supply networks, and detection by gas-based consciousness entities. 2 weeks before that, there had been major updates to planetary siege protocols. The system now knew how to counter crystal-based communication networks and how to disrupt harmonic barriers. Last week, the grid had added comprehensive defense plans for water worlds, including tactics for underwater cities and amphibious assault prevention. Each update was brilliant. The new defensive strategies addressed weaknesses that even Jisoo had not fully considered. But where were they coming from? She dug deeper into the system logs, tracing the source of each modification. The pattern that emerged made her stomach feel cold. Every update originated from educational network terminals, specifically terminals that were being used during the exchange program classes taught by the human instructor, Lee Hana Jisoo, cross-referenced the timing. The asteroid mining updates had appeared the day after a lesson about defending mining operations. The Waterworld protocols had been added right after a class about aquatic planetary defense. Every single modification corresponded to one of Hana's lessons. This could not be a coincidence. Jisoo reached for her communicator and called Commander Jang Minho in intelligence. "Minho, we need to talk. Tonight." An hour later, they sat in Jisoo's office looking at the evidence spread across her desk. Data request logs, defense grid modifications, and class schedules created a pattern that was impossible to ignore. "So the human teacher asks her students questions about their homeworlds," Minho said slowly, "and somehow this information ends up improving our defense systems?" "It is not just improving them," Jisoo replied. "It is fundamentally changing how the system thinks about threats. Look at this." She brought up a comparison display. "Before these updates, our grid treated all asteroid mining operations the same way. Basic perimeter defense, standard patrol routes. But now it considers species-specific capabilities. It knows that nebulons can provide early warning across vast distances, that Xerion forces can move underground undetected, that Zephyrians can create crystalline communication networks." Minho leaned forward. "And this information is coming from classroom discussions?" "It has to be. The timing is too perfect. Every time the students reveal something about their capabilities or weaknesses, the defense grid learns about it and adapts." They sat in silence for a moment, considering the implications. "Could it be automated?" Minho asked. "Some kind of AI system that monitors conversations and extracts tactical intelligence?" Jisoo shook her head. "I have checked the classroom recording systems. They are standard educational monitors, nothing sophisticated enough for this kind of analysis. And besides, someone would have to interpret the intelligence and convert it into defensive strategies. That requires human-level thinking. Or alien-level thinking, Minho corrected. But you are right. This is not some automatic process. Someone is actively analyzing what the students say and using it to update our defenses. The question is, who and why? Minho already had his suspicions. The modifications are all defensive, right? Nothing aggressive? Correct. Every update improves our ability to protect Council worlds and assets. Nothing about attacking or invading. Then maybe we should be grateful instead of suspicious. Jisoo looked at him in surprise. Someone is conducting intelligence gathering, operations using our own educational system, and you think we should be grateful. Think about it, Minho said. Whoever is doing this has access to our defense grid. They could have inserted attack plans, sabotage protocols, anything. Instead, they are making us stronger. But why? What do they gain from improving our defenses? Before Minho could answer, Jisoo's communicator chimed. A priority message from the Defense Grid Monitoring Station. Dr. Kim, you need to see this, the technician's voice said. The grid just updated again. Major changes to the threat assessment for gas giant mining platforms. Jisoo and Minho looked at each other. When did the update occur? She asked. 23 minutes ago. Jisoo checked her schedule display. Hana's evening class ended 25 minutes ago. Today's topic was defending orbital facilities around gas giants. The pattern continued. 2 hours later, Yoon Dae-ho received an encrypted message in his quarters. As Chief of Council Security, he was used to late-night alerts, but this one was different. It came from his own intelligence team, marked with the highest priority codes. Dae-ho read the report twice, then called an emergency meeting with Admiral Vextar. They met in the Admiral's private office, a secured room deep within the station's command section. Vextar listened in silence as Dae-ho explained what his people had discovered. So you believe this human teacher is conducting intelligence operations, the Admiral said when Dae-ho finished. The evidence is clear. Every class session results in improvements to our defense grid that directly relate to information revealed by the students. And these improvements are helping us? Yes. Our defensive capabilities have increased significantly since the classes began. Vextar was quiet for a long moment, his 6 arms folded in a gesture of deep thought. Finally, he spoke. Have you considered that this might be exactly what the humans intended? Dae-ho blinked in surprise. Sir? Earth is the newest member of the Council. They are surrounded by species that have been traveling the stars for thousands of years. If there were ever a conflict, humans would be vastly outmatched. True. But what if they could make the Council stronger? What if they could improve our defensive capabilities while simultaneously learning about our strengths and weaknesses? From their perspective, this would be ideal. We become harder to attack, and they learn what they need to know to defend themselves. Dae-ho considered this. You think this is official Earth policy? I think humans are more clever than we have given them credit for. And I think we need to decide whether this bothers us. Sir? Security Chief, our defenses have never been stronger. Our strategic capabilities have improved dramatically. Whatever the humans are doing, it is making the Council more secure. But they are gathering intelligence on all our species. Yes. And in return, they are sharing intelligence on how to defend against threats we had not even considered. From a purely practical standpoint, This is beneficial to everyone. Daiho was beginning to understand his commander's perspective. So what do? We watch, we learn, and we see what else the humans teach us. The next morning, Admiral Vexi Tar took his usual seat in the back of Hana's classroom. But now he was watching with new eyes, seeing the subtle intelligence operation hidden within the educational exchange. As Hana asked her carefully crafted questions and the students eagerly shared information about their worlds, the Admiral found himself impressed despite his concerns. The human was conducting espionage and education simultaneously, benefiting both Earth and the Council. It was elegant. It was effective. And it was probably exactly what he would do if he were in Earth's position. The question now was whether the rest of the Council would see it the same way when they inevitably discovered what was happening, because Vextar was certain they would discover it. Patterns this obvious could not stay hidden forever. And when that happened, the real test would begin. Midterm examination week had arrived at the Galactic Council Academy, and Hana's classroom buzzed with nervous energy. Instead of traditional written tests, she had designed practical exercises that would challenge her students to think creatively about defense scenarios. Today, you will work in teams, Hana announced to the class. Each team will receive information about a hypothetical world that needs defending. You must design a complete defensive strategy, including early warning, systems, fleet positioning, ground defenses, and contingency plans. She handed out data tablets to each group. The tablets contained detailed information about fictional planets, each one carefully crafted to resemble the homeworlds of her students. Clas led a team that received a desert world with underground, cities and vast sand seas. Veltar's group got a crystal world with harmonic resonance fields. Wisfan's team faced the challenge of defending a nebula-shrouded system with gas-based life forms. As the students worked, Hana moved between the EO groups, observing their discussions and asking probing questions. To any observer, she appeared to be a dedicated teacher helping her students succeed. But her questions were more specific than they seemed. Clas, she said, stopping beside the Kithara's team. Your underground cities are impressive. How deep can your people typically build? And what kind of equipment do you use for large-scale excavation? The insect alien clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. On our homeworld, we can dig down nearly 2 kilometers before hitting the thermal layer. We use harmonic borers that vibrate through solid rock. Fascinating. And for communication between levels, bioelectric networks. Each Kithara can transmit signals through our nervous system, creating a living communication grid that spans the entire hive complex. Hana nodded and made notes. What about power systems for such deep installations? Clas' team member, a young Kithara named Zekmore, answered eagerly. Geothermal taps, mostly. We drill down to magma chambers and use the heat to power our cities. The deeper we go, the more power we can generate. And if someone wanted to disrupt these power systems, the team exchanged glances. They would need to reach the thermal layer, Clas said slowly. But that would require specialized drilling equipment and knowledge of our tunnel layouts. Of course, Hana said with her usual vague smile. Just thinking through all the possibilities. She moved on to Veltar's group, who were designing defenses for their crystal world. Your resonance field idea is creative, she told them. How exactly would you coordinate such a system across an entire planet? Veltar's colors shifted to excited blues and greens. Each crystal formation can amplify and relay harmonic frequencies. We create a network that spans continents, allowing instant communication and coordinated defensive responses. What frequencies do you use for military communications? Ultra-harmonic range, usually between 847 and 932 terahertz. At those frequencies, the crystals resonate perfectly with our neural patterns. Another team member, a young Zephyrian named Corval, added, "We also use harmonic weapons, focused sound waves that can shatter incoming missiles or disrupt enemy electronics." "How far can these harmonic weapons reach?" Hana asked. "In space, with perfect crystal resonance, we can focus a beam accurately to about 50,000 kilometers. Hana's eyes showed genuine interest. "And what would happen if someone disrupted the crystal network? Say, by introducing counterfrequencies?" The Zephyrian students looked uncomfortable. Veltar's colors shifted to worried purples. That would be very bad. If the resonance was disrupted, our entire communication and defense network would collapse. "Good to know," Hana said. "Always important to understand vulnerabilities." As she continued her rounds, Admiral Vextar watched from his corner seat with growing certainty. The human teacher was not just observing the exercise. She was conducting a master class in intelligence gathering, using the students' own creativity against them. Each team was inadvertently revealing the defensive secrets of their species while trying to solve the hypothetical scenarios. And Hana's questions were systematically extracting the most sensitive tactical information. When she stopped beside Wisfan's group, the Admiral leaned forward to listen more carefully. "Your gas form dispersal strategy is intriguing," Hana was saying. "How exactly do your people coordinate when spread across such vast distances?" Wisfan's containment suit vibrated as he spoke. "We maintain quantum entanglement links between our consciousness particles. No matter how far apart we spread, we remain connected at the subatomic level." "And this works across interstellar distances?" "Oh, yes. Distance means nothing to quantum." "Entanglement. My people can maintain contact across the entire galaxy if needed." A team member named Fluxian added, "We also use gravitational lensing to focus our consciousness. By spreading around massive objects like stars or black holes, we can amplify our perception and communication range." "Remarkable," Hana said. "What would happen if these quantum links were somehow severed?" The gas beings seemed to shudder within their suits. "That would be catastrophic. Cut off from the collective consciousness. An individual nebulon would lose cohesion within hours." "How might such severing occur?" "Quantum dampening fields could disrupt the entanglement," Wisfan said reluctantly. "Or certain exotic particles that interfere with quantum states." Hana nodded thoughtfully. "I hope such technology never exists." But the Admiral noticed that she made very detailed notes about the conversation. After 3 hours, the exercise ended, and the teams presented their defensive strategies. Each presentation was brilliant, showcasing the unique strengths of different species, while inadvertently revealing their weaknesses. As the students filed out of the classroom, chattering excitedly about their solutions, Admiral Vextar remained in his seat. He watched Hana collect her notes and pack her materials. "Interesting exercise?" he said when they were alone. Hana looked up from her desk. "I think the students learned a lot today." "Yes," the Admiral said slowly. "I think everyone learned a lot today." Their eyes met across the classroom, and in that moment, both of them understood that the pretense was over. The Admiral knew what Hana was really doing, and Hana knew that he knew. The students' strategies were very creative, Hana said carefully. "Indeed, they revealed capabilities I did not know their species possessed." Knowledge is valuable for any teacher. For teachers, yes, and for other professions as well. They stood in silence for a moment, each waiting for the other to make the next move. Finally, Hana spoke. I hope their learning will serve them well in the future. I am certain it will, Admiral Vexitar replied, though I wonder what you plan to do with what you have learned. Hana's expression remained neutral. A good teacher always uses what she learns to help her students grow. Of course. And Earth has many students to teach, I imagine. Earth is always eager to learn from others and share what it knows in return. Admiral Vexitar nodded slowly. The conversation was full of hidden meanings, but the message was clear. Earth was gathering intelligence, but it was also contributing to Council security through the defense grid improvements. That evening, the Admiral called an emergency meeting with the Council leadership. It was time to decide how to respond to humanity's elegant intelligence operation. But first, he wanted to see what the defense grid would learn from today's exercise, because he was certain that by morning, their defensive capabilities would be even stronger than before. Hana had just given Earth a comprehensive briefing on the military capabilities and weaknesses of 12 alien species. But she had also given the Council new ways to defend against threats they had never considered. The question now was whether the benefits outweighed the risks, and whether the Council would allow this remarkable arrangement to continue. The Council emergency session was called for 0800 hours, but the arguments had already begun in the corridors and meeting rooms throughout Kepler Station. Word of the human intelligence operation had spread quickly through the leadership, and opinions were sharply divided. In the main council chamber, 12 species were represented around the massive circular table. The room's translation systems hummed constantly as heated discussions erupted in dozens of languages. Admiral Vexitar stood at the center of the chamber, presenting his findings to the assembled representatives. Holographic displays showed the correlation between Hana's classes and the defense grid updates, along with detailed analysis of the intelligence that had been gathered. The evidence is clear, he concluded. The human teacher has systematically extracted military intelligence from our students while simultaneously improving our defensive capabilities. Counselor Thekvar of the Cathara delegation clicked his mandibles angrily. This is espionage. The humans have violated our trust and compromised our security. Have they? Asked Counselor Zelani of the Zephyrians, her crystalline form shifting to thoughtful amber colors. Our defenses have never been stronger. Our strategic capabilities have improved dramatically. That is not the point, Thekvar shot back. They gathered this intelligence through deception. From the Nebulon section of the chamber, Counselor Driftmind spoke in his whispering voice. But was it truly deception? The human teacher never lied to the students. She asked questions, and they chose to answer. She manipulated them, insisted Counselor Shartok of the Zerion delegation, his reptilian scales flashing angry red. She used their eagerness to learn against them. General Park Woo-jin, Earth's military liaison, sat quietly through the accusations. He had been expecting this confrontation since Earth had approved Hana's mission months ago. Now that the operation was exposed, he had to choose his words carefully. Counselor Ryu Hyunwoo, Earth's primary representative, finally stood to address the chamber. Honored colleagues, let me be clear about Earth's position. We make no apologies for seeking to understand our new neighbors and their capabilities. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Ryu waited for quiet before continuing. Earth joined this Council 5 years ago. We are surrounded by civilizations that have been traveling the stars for millennia while we were still discovering fire. If we are to survive in this galaxy, we must understand both potential threats and potential allies. So you admit this was an intelligence operation? Demanded Thekvar. I admit that Earth has vital security interests, just as every species in this chamber does. But consider what we have done with the intelligence we gathered, Ryu gestured, to the holographic displays. Every piece of information we collected has been used to strengthen Council defenses. We could have kept this knowledge secret, used it only for Earth's benefit. Instead, we shared it through the defense grid improvements. Counselor Morven of the Altarian Coalition leaned forward. But why gather this intelligence at all? Why not simply ask for the information you needed? General Park finally spoke. With respect, Counselor, would you have given it to us? Would any of you have shared detailed information about your military capabilities with the newest, weakest member of the Council? The chamber fell silent. The truth was uncomfortable, but undeniable. None of the established powers would have freely shared such sensitive information with humanity. Earth's position is precarious, Park continued. We have no ancient alliances, no established trade relationships, no sphere of influence. If conflict comes to this galaxy, we will be alone unless we can prove our value to the Council. And how does spying on us prove your value? Asked Counselor Velthin of the Nexus Federation. Because we used what we learned to make all of you stronger, Ryu replied. Earth could have used this intelligence to plan attacks, to identify weaknesses, to exploit. Instead, we used it to create defenses that protect everyone. Dr. Kim Jisoo, who had been invited to present the technical analysis, stood to address the Council. The defense grid improvements are remarkable. We now have strategic capabilities that would have taken decades to develop through conventional research. She activated a new holographic display showing threat assessment comparisons. Our ability to defend against multi-species attacks has increased by 340%. Our early warning systems now account for exotic detection methods we never knew existed. Our planetary defense protocols have evolved beyond anything we previously imagined. All because the humans learned our secrets, Thekvar muttered. All because the humans taught our people to think differently about defense, Jisoo corrected. The intelligence gathering was part of it, yes, but the teaching methods were revolutionary, making students think through problems instead of memorizing solutions, encouraging creative strategic thinking, forcing them to consider unconventional approaches. Counselor Zelani's form shifted to curious green hues. Are you saying the educational benefit was real? Absolutely. Our military academies are already requesting to adopt these teaching methods. The human approach to strategic education is unlike anything we have seen. Admiral Vextar stepped forward again. This brings us to the real question facing the Council. What do we do now? Expel the humans? Thekvar demanded. They cannot be trusted. Foolish, wheezed Counselor Gasper of the Ventorian Empire. We would lose the benefits of their intelligence improvements and gain nothing. So we reward espionage? Asked Shartok. We acknowledge reality, replied Driftmind. The humans gathered intelligence that we would never have shared willingly. They used this intelligence to strengthen the Council rather than weaken it. And they did so while genuinely improving our educational and strategic capabilities. Counselor Ryu looked around the chamber. Earth proposes a formal arrangement. We will continue to share intelligence through the defense grid improvements, and we will expand the educational exchange program to benefit all member species. In return, we ask for recognition as a full strategic partner in Council security matters. You want to be rewarded for spying on us?" Tekvar's voice rose to an angry screech. "We want to formalize a relationship that benefits everyone," Park replied calmly. "Earth needs intelligence to survive in this galaxy. The Council benefits from our intelligence analysis and strategic insights. Why not make this official?" The debate continued for hours, with positions hardening along predictable lines. The older, more established species were outraged by the deception. The newer members were more sympathetic to Earth's position. The military representatives were impressed by the defensive improvements. Finally, Admiral Vextar called for order. "We will recess for 1 day to allow delegations to consult with their governments. When we reconvene, we will vote on 3 options." He displayed the choices on the main screen. First, expel Earth from the Council for conducting unauthorized intelligence operations. Second, censure Earth but allow them to remain as members with restricted access. Third, formalize the intelligence sharing arrangement as proposed by the human delegation. As the representatives filed out of the chamber, the arguments continued in smaller groups. Some were calling for harsh punishment, others for pragmatic acceptance of the new reality. General Park and Councilor Ryu walked together toward the human delegation quarters. They had made their case as best they could. Now they had to wait for the Council's decision. "Do you think we have enough support?" Ryu asked quietly. "It will be close," Park replied. "But I think pragmatism will win in the end. The defense improvements are too valuable to throw away. And if it does not?" Park was quiet for a moment. "Then Earth will have to find its own way in this galaxy. With everything we have learned about our neighbors' capabilities and weaknesses." It was not a threat, exactly, but it was a reminder that Earth now possessed intelligence that could be used for purposes other than mutual defense. The next 24 hours would determine whether humanity's clever gambit would lead to acceptance or isolation. Either way, Earth would be ready. While the Council debated Earth's fate in the political chambers, a different kind of revelation was unfolding in the student dormitories of Kepler Station. Clikteth sat cross-legged on her sleeping platform, her 4 arms moving restlessly as she reviewed her class notes from the past 2 months. Around her, study materials were scattered in the organized chaos that her species preferred. But tonight, she was not studying for exams. She was trying to solve a puzzle. The door chimed, and Veltar entered, his crystalline form glowing with nervous purple light. Behind him came Wisfin in his mobility suit, and then Mordek, his scales shifting to the muted colors he wore when thinking deeply. "Did you bring the recording crystals?" Clikteth asked. Veltar held up a small device that sparkled with stored data. "Every class session we could access. The patterns are all here. They had been meeting like this for 3 nights, ever since rumors of the Council investigation had reached the student quarters. At first, none of them had wanted to believe that their beloved teacher might be a spy. But the more they examined her methods, the more obvious the truth became. "Show me the lesson on orbital defense," Clikteth said. Veltar activated the crystal, and a holographic recording filled the room. They watched as their past selves eagerly answered Hana's questions about their homeworld's defensive capabilities. "Look at how she asks about our quantum entanglement networks," Wisfin observed, his voice carrying a note of admiration. "She never directly requests the information. She just asks follow-up questions that make us want to explain more." Mordek's scales rippled with embarrassed yellow tones. "And I told her everything about our underground cache systems, even the mapping frequencies." We all did, Clickteth said. She made us feel proud of our worlds, excited to share what made our people special. They continued reviewing the recordings, identifying instance after instance where Hana had extracted sensitive military intelligence through seemingly innocent educational discussions. "But here is what I do not understand," said a new voice from the doorway. They turned to see Zekmor, Clickteth's younger nest sibling, entering with several other students behind her. Word of the late-night analysis sessions had spread. "What don't you understand?" Clickteth asked. "If Teacher Hana was gathering intelligence to use against us, why did she teach us to be better defenders? Why did she make us stronger?" The room fell silent as the students considered this question. It was true that Hana's teaching methods had dramatically improved their strategic thinking abilities. They were all better military tacticians now than when the semester had started. Fluxion, another Nebulon student, drifted closer in his containment suit. "I have been thinking about this too. Traditional espionage seeks to weaken the target. But Teacher Hana's methods strengthen us while gathering information. Maybe that was part of her plan," suggested Korval, a young Zephyrian. "Make us trust her by helping us, then use that trust to extract secrets. Or maybe," Clickteth said slowly, "her goals were more complex than simple espionage. She activated her personal data pad and pulled up news feeds about the council debates. Look at what the human representatives are saying. They claim they used our information to improve council defenses, not to plan attacks against us." "Could that be true?" Wisfan asked. "There is one way to find out," Mordek said, his scales shifting to determined orange. "We ask her directly." The other students stared at him in surprise. "You want to confront Teacher Hana?" Veltar's colors shifted to worried purple. "What if she lies to us?" "Then we will know she is truly our enemy," Mordek replied. "But if she tells us the truth, we will know where we stand." Clickteth clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. "It is risky. If she really is a spy, confronting her could be dangerous." "More dangerous than not knowing?" Zekmor asked. "The Council is debating whether to expel humanity from the Alliance. Our testimony could influence that decision, but we need to understand what we are testifying about." After an hour of debate, they reached a consensus. They would approach Hana together as a group and ask her to explain her true purpose. It was direct, it was dangerous, and it was exactly the kind of bold action that her teaching methods had encouraged them to take. The next evening, they found Hana in her office, grading papers and preparing for classes that might never happen if the Council voted against Earth. She looked up in surprise when the group of students appeared at her door. "This is unexpected," she said with her usual calm smile. "What can I do for you?" Clickteth stepped forward as the group's spokesperson. "Teacher Hana, we know what you have been doing." Hana's expression did not change, but something shifted in her eyes. "What do you think I have been doing?" "Gathering intelligence about our species' military capabilities and weaknesses," Veltar said, his form flickering with nervous energy. "Using our classroom discussions to learn our secrets," added Wisfan. "Spying on us while pretending to teach us," Mordek concluded. Hana was quiet for a long moment, studying their faces. Then she nodded slowly. "You are correct." The simple admission hung in the air like a physical presence. Even though they had expected it, hearing her confirm their suspicions was startling. "Are you going to deny it?" Clickteth asked. No. You have figured out the truth. You deserve an honest answer. Zekmore leaned forward eagerly. Then tell us why. Why gather intelligence if you were going to help us become stronger? Hana considered her words carefully. How much do you know about Earth's situation in the galaxy? You are the newest council. Member, Fluxion replied, your technology is less advanced than most species. Your military is small, added Corval. You have no established alliances, Mordek said. Exactly. Hana stood and walked to her window, looking out at the stars. Earth is alone in a galaxy full of ancient civilizations. If conflict comes, we will need allies. But how do you convince powerful species to ally with the weakest member of the Council? By proving your value, Klikteth said. Understanding, beginning to dawn in her compound eyes. Yes. And how do you prove your value when you have no military strength, no advanced technology, no strategic resources? By showing that you can contribute in other ways, Wisfan said slowly. Hana turned back to face them. Earth needed to understand the threats and opportunities in this galaxy. We needed intelligence about our neighbors' capabilities. But we also needed to demonstrate that we could use that intelligence responsibly. So you improved our defenses instead of planning attacks, Veltar realized. We showed the Council that human intelligence analysis could benefit everyone, not just Earth. We proved that we could be trusted with sensitive information. But you still gathered intelligence about our weaknesses, Mordek pointed out. Yes, because Earth needs to understand how to defend itself and its allies. If we know how to counter Kithara underground tactics, we can help defend Kithara worlds against enemies who might use similar strategies. Klikteth clicked her mandibles as she processed this. You turned intelligence gathering into mutual defense preparation. That was the goal. Whether we succeeded depends on what the Council decides tomorrow. The students exchanged glances. This was more complex than simple espionage or simple education. Hana had created something entirely new, cooperative intelligence, gathering that strengthened all participants. What will happen if the Council expels Earth? Zekmore asked. Hana's expression became sad. Then Earth will have to find its own way in this galaxy. We will use what we have learned to defend ourselves, and we will hope that someday the Council will reconsider. And if they accept the formal arrangement, then we continue working together. Earth provides intelligence analysis and strategic insights, and the Council benefits from improved defenses and innovative thinking. Klikteth made a decision that surprised even herself. We want to testify to the Council tomorrow in support of the formal arrangement. The other students nodded agreement, though some looked nervous about the prospect. Hana stared at them in shock. You want to support Earth's position? After learning that I gathered intelligence on your species? You made us better strategists, Veltar said. You taught us to think beyond traditional approaches. You gathered intelligence, yes, Wisfan added, but you used it to protect us, not harm us. And now we want to help you, Mordek concluded. As the students filed out of her office, Hana sat down heavily in her chair. She had expected anger, betrayal, demands for punishment. Instead, her students had surprised her with understanding and support. It was exactly the kind of unconventional thinking she had been trying to teach them. Tomorrow, the Council would vote on Earth's future, and now they would hear testimony from an unexpected source. The students who had been unwitting participants in humanity's intelligence operation. Hana wondered if the Council would be as adaptable as her students had proven to be. The council was 3 hours into heated deliberations when the emergency klaxons began blaring throughout Kepler Station. Admiral Vextar's communicator crackled with urgent reports from the outer sensor networks. "Admiral, we have multiple contacts. Entering council space. Unknown configuration, heavy signatures. They're not responding to hails." The council chamber erupted in confused voices as the emergency protocols activated. Holographic displays materialized around the circular table, showing tactical information streaming in from border monitoring stations. "How many ships?" "Admiral," Vextar demanded as he stood to coordinate the response. 67 vessels confirmed, more still emerging from hyperspace. Their technology signatures don't match any known council species. Counselor Thekvar's mandibles clicked rapidly with anxiety. Could this be related to the intelligence gathering? Did the humans' activities compromise our security? Before anyone could answer, the main display updated with a chilling message. "This is War Master Colvarin of the Hegemony of Valdris. We claim this sector by right of conquest. Surrender your military assets and prepare for occupation." The chamber fell silent. The Hegemony of Valdris was a name from intelligence reports, a militant expansionist state that had been probing council borders for months, but they had never attempted anything this bold. "Battle stations," Admiral Vextar ordered. "Activate all defense grids and mobilize the fleet." As alarms continued to sound, military personnel rushed to their positions throughout the station. In the tactical center, Dr. Kim Jisoo watched the defense grid come online, its systems analyzing the threat and recommending countermeasures. What she saw made her blood run cold. The hegemony attack pattern was targeting specific weak points in council defenses. Their ships were positioned to exploit vulnerabilities that existed in the old defensive protocols. If the defense grid had not been updated over the past 2 months, this attack would have been devastating. "Admiral," she called through the communication system, "the enemy is attacking our historical weak points. They're using outdated intelligence about our defensive capabilities." "Explain." "Their battle plan assumes we still have the same vulnerabilities we had 3 months ago, but the grid updates have eliminated those weaknesses." On the main tactical display, the hegemony fleet moved into attack formation, clearly expecting minimal resistance at their chosen targets. Instead, they found themselves facing defensive arrangements that countered their every advantage. The first hegemony assault wave targeted the asteroid mining facilities in the Kepler system, using fast strike ships in the hit-and-run pattern that had worked against other civilizations. But the defense grid now knew about Nebulon early warning networks and Xerion underground supply caches. The mining stations had been reinforced with multi-layered defenses that the attackers never saw coming. Hegemony ships that expected to find isolated, lightly defended targets instead encountered coordinated resistance from hidden defensive positions. Their fast attack craft found themselves trapped between orbital platforms and mobile defense units that had been positioned using insights from Hana's intelligence gathering. "Second wave incoming," reported the tactical officer. "They're targeting our communication networks." This attack focused on disrupting the crystalline relay stations that connected council worlds. The hegemony had studied Zephyrian technology and developed harmonic weapons designed to shatter crystal communication networks, but the defense grid had been updated with countermeasures. Instead of vulnerable single-frequency networks, the stations now used multi-harmonic redundancy systems that could adapt to interference. The hegemony's harmonic weapons actually strengthened the network by providing additional resonance frequencies. "Their weapons are having the opposite effect," Dr. Jisoo reported with amazement. "The crystal networks are using the attack energy to amplify their own signals." In the council chamber, representatives watched the battle unfold with growing astonishment. The hegemony had clearly planned this attack carefully, using detailed intelligence about council defensive capabilities. But their intelligence was outdated. "How did they know about our old weaknesses?" asked Counselor Zelani. "Intelligence gathering," replied General Park grimly. "The same thing we have been debating, but they gathered intelligence to attack while we gathered intelligence to defend." The third hegemony assault wave targeted gas giant mining platforms, attempting to disrupt fuel production for the Council fleet. Their attack ships spread quantum dampening fields designed to disrupt nebulon consciousness networks and isolate individual defenders. Instead, they found their dampening fields being absorbed and redirected by gravitational lens arrays that hadn't existed in the old defensive plans. The nebulon defenders used the quantum interference to create decoy consciousness, patterns that confuse the attacker's targeting systems. "Impossible," War Master Kolvarin's voice crackled over the communication channels. "Your defenses were not this strong in our intelligence reports." Admiral Vextar smiled grimly as he responded. "Perhaps your intelligence was not as good as you thought." The hegemony's final assault targeted Council fleet positions using combined arms tactics that should have overwhelmed the scattered defensive ships. But the fleet had been repositioned according to new strategic principles that emphasized adaptive response over static defense. Instead of meeting the attack head-on, Council ships used hit-and-fade tactics learned from studying multiple species approaches to warfare. They combined Kithara underground movement principles with Zephyrian harmonic coordination and Nebulon distributed consciousness tactics. The result was a defensive strategy unlike anything the hegemony had encountered. Council forces seemed to vanish when attacked directly, only to reappear in unexpected positions with perfectly coordinated counterstrikes. Within 6 hours, the hegemony attack had collapsed entirely. Their ships retreated in disorder, having failed to achieve any of their objectives while losing nearly half their fleet to defensive systems they hadn't known existed. As the all-clear signal sounded throughout Kepler Station, the council chamber remained silent for a long moment. The implications of what had just happened were staggering. The hegemony had detailed intelligence about our old defensive capabilities, Admiral Vextar said finally. If we had not updated our systems, this attack would have succeeded. Counselor. Tekvar's mandibles clicked slowly. You mean if the humans had not gathered intelligence and improved our defenses? Exactly. Dr. Jisu's voice came through the communication system. Admiral, I've analyzed the hegemony attack patterns. They had comprehensive data about our defensive weaknesses as of 4 months ago. Someone has been gathering intelligence on the Council for a long time. But their intelligence was outdated, added General Park, because Earth's intelligence operation resulted in defensive improvements that the hegemony didn't know about. The irony was not lost on anyone in the Black Chamber. While the Council had been debating whether to punish Earth for intelligence gathering, that same intelligence gathering had saved them from a devastating attack. Counselor Ryu stood slowly. Earth's intelligence operation was designed to understand potential threats and improve mutual defenses. Today we saw why both aspects were necessary. The hegemony had been gathering intelligence to attack us, Admiral Vexitar confirmed. But their information was 3 months old. In that time, the human-provided improvements made our defenses strong enough to repel them. Counselor Driftmind spoke in his whispering voice. So we must ask ourselves, would we rather have allies who gather intelligence to strengthen our defenses, or enemies who gather intelligence to exploit our weaknesses? The question hung in the air as the council members considered the day's events. The hegemony attack had provided a real-world test of the ethical and practical questions they had been debating. "I call for an immediate vote," said Counselor Zelani, her crystalline form glowing with determined blue light. "We have seen the results of Earth's intelligence operation. Our defenses held against an attack that would have succeeded without their improvements." "Seconded," added several other voices. As the voting began, it became clear that the day's events had dramatically shifted opinion. Species that had been calling for Earth's expulsion now voted to formalize the intelligence-sharing arrangement. The final tally was overwhelming. 11 species voted to accept Earth's proposal, with only the Kithara delegation abstaining. "Earth's intelligence operation is hereby legitimized as a formal Council security initiative," Admiral Vextar announced. "The exchange program will be expanded, and human intelligence analysis will become a permanent part of our defensive planning." Indias. Her office, Hana received the news with quiet satisfaction. The test had come sooner than anyone expected, but Earth had passed with higher marks than she had dared hope. The galaxy was indeed a dangerous place, full of threats like the hegemony of Valdris. But now Earth had proven its value as an ally in facing those threats, and the Council had learned that sometimes the best defense came from the most unexpected sources. 6 months after the hegemony attack, Lee Hana stood before a very different classroom than the one where her story had begun. The Collaborative Defense Strategy Center was 3 times larger than her original teaching space, with advanced holographic systems and communication networks that connected directly to military academies across Council space. Her students were different, too. Instead of just 12 species, she now taught representatives from 23 different civilizations, including several that had joined the Council specifically because of the new defensive capabilities they had witnessed during the hegemony crisis. But some things remained the same. Admiral Vextar still sat in the back corner, though now his presence was official rather than suspicious. Dr. Kim Jisoo attended every session, taking notes on defensive innovations that emerged from the discussions, and Hana's teaching methods were still built around careful questions that encouraged students to think beyond conventional approaches. "Today, we are going to examine the hegemony attack patterns," she announced to the class. "I want each species group to analyze how the enemy attempted to exploit your traditional weaknesses and how the improved defenses countered those attempts." Clikteth, now serving as a student instructor herself, raised one of her 4 hands. "Teacher Hana, before we begin the tactical analysis, I think we should acknowledge something important." "What is that?" 6 months ago, we discovered that you were gathering intelligence about our capabilities while teaching us. Today, we are gathered here specifically to share that intelligence for mutual benefit. The difference is not in what you are doing, but in whether we understand and consent to it." Hana smiled. "That is a very insightful observation, Clikteth. How does understanding and consent change the nature of intelligence sharing?" Veltar's crystalline form shimmered with thoughtful colors. "When information is shared voluntarily, it becomes collaboration instead of espionage. Both sides benefit because both sides contribute. And," added Wisfen from his containment suit, "when the purpose is mutual defense rather than individual advantage, sharing information makes everyone stronger instead of making someone vulnerable." These were lessons that had taken the Council months to fully understand. The initial anger about Hana's intelligence gathering had gradually given way to appreciation for the results. But more importantly, it had led to a fundamental shift in how the Council approached security cooperation. "Commander Jang Minho will be joining us today," Hana announced. "He will explain how the new intelligence sharing protocols work." Minho entered the classroom carrying a data tablet filled with information that would have been classified top secret just a year ago. Now it was part of the standard curriculum for Council defense strategists. The Collaborative Intelligence Network, he began, operates on the principle that shared knowledge creates shared security. Each member species contributes information about their capabilities, their weaknesses, and their strategic insights. In return, they receive comprehensive intelligence about threats, defensive improvements, and strategic innovations from all other members. A student from the newly joined Helix Confederation raised a tentacle. But what prevents someone from using this shared intelligence against other council members? Several safeguards, Minho replied. First, all shared intelligence is focused on defensive capabilities and threat assessment, not on offensive planning. Second, the network uses distributed processing, so no single species has access to the complete intelligence picture. And third, any member who attempts to use the intelligence for aggressive purposes would immediately lose access to the network. More importantly, added Dr. Jisoo from her observer seat, the intelligence is designed to create mutual interdependence. If you attack another council member, you lose the defensive benefits that protect your own worlds. Mordek, whose Zarian people had become enthusiastic supporters of the new system, gestured with his clawed hand. The genius of the human approach was making intelligence gathering serve everyone's interests simultaneously. That was not genius, Hana said modestly. That was necessity. Earth needed intelligence to survive, but we were too weak to take it by force. We had to find a way to gather information while providing value in return. Which brings us to today's main lesson, announced General Park Woo-jin as he entered the classroom. His presence caused a stir among the students, as he rarely attended regular classes. The Council has decided to expand the Collaborative Defense Strategy Program, he announced. We are establishing similar centers on 12 different worlds, each one teaching the same principles of adaptive defense and cooperative intelligence sharing. The students looked excited by this news. Many of them had already been selected to help establish the new centers on their homeworlds. But, Park continued, we have also detected signs that other powers in the galaxy are taking notice of our new defensive capabilities. The hegemony was just the first test. There will be others. He activated a holographic display showing star maps with potential threat vectors marked in red. The Dominion of Karath has been probing our outer systems. The Syndicate of Free Traders has been asking unusual questions about our shipping routes, and long-range sensors have detected unknown ship signatures in several uninhabited systems near our borders. Which means, Hana said, taking over the briefing, that our next challenge is not just sharing intelligence among ourselves, but understanding the capabilities and intentions of potential enemies who are actively working to hide their true strength. Clicketh clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. That is a very different kind of intelligence problem. Yes. When we shared information among council members, we were working with people who ultimately wanted the same thing, mutual security. When we gather intelligence about potential enemies, we are working with people who actively want to deceive us. So how do we adapt our methods? Asked Fluxion. Hana looked around the classroom, seeing the eager faces of students who had become colleagues and colleagues who had become friends. These were the people who would carry the collaborative defense concept to the far reaches of council space. The same way we always have, she said. We ask questions, we observe carefully, and we think about what the answers really mean. But most importantly, we do it together. Admiral Vextar stood from his corner seat. I have an announcement that may help with that cooperation. All eyes turned to the Admiral, who rarely spoke during classes. The Council has approved the establishment of a new position, Director of Collaborative Defense Strategy. This person will coordinate intelligence sharing across all Council species and oversee the development of adaptive defensive strategies. He paused dramatically. Teacher Hana, the position is yours if you want it. The classroom erupted in excited chatter from the students. Hana stood quietly for a moment, considering the magnitude of what was being offered. I am honored by the Council's confidence, she said finally. But I have one condition. What condition? Admiral Vextar asked. I keep teaching. The classroom is where the real innovation happens. It is where young minds learn to think beyond conventional approaches. If I'm going to coordinate galactic defense strategy, I need to stay connected to the people who will actually implement it. Agreed, the Admiral said with something that might have been a smile. Your first class as director will be next week. Same time, same methods, same vague answers to direct questions. As the students filed out of the classroom, chattering excitedly about the future, Hana remained behind to organize her materials. The irony was not lost on her that she had begun this assignment as a spy pretending to be a teacher and had ended up as a teacher who occasionally engaged in espionage. Clicketh approached her desk as the room emptied. Teacher Hana, may I ask you something personal? Of course. When you first came here, did you expect things to develop this way? Hana considered the question carefully. I hoped Earth would learn enough to survive in this galaxy. I never imagined that our intelligence gathering would transform how the entire Council thinks about security. And now? Now I think humans and aliens have more in common than any of us realized. We all want to protect our homes and our people. We all want to understand the universe around us. And we all want to believe that cooperation is stronger than conflict. Do you think that is true? That cooperation is stronger than conflict? Hana looked out the classroom window at the stars of the galactic core, where new threats were already stirring and new challenges awaited. I think we are going to find out, she said. A year later, when a new class of students asked Hana about Earth's defensive capabilities, she gave them the same response she had always given. Well, that depends on the circumstances. But now the students understood that the vague answer was not evasion. It was wisdom. Because in a galaxy full of ancient civilizations and emerging threats, the only constant was change. And the only defense that truly worked was the ability to adapt, to learn, and to face the unknown together. The humans had taught the galaxy that sometimes the best answers were the ones that led to better questions, and sometimes the most effective. Intelligence operation was the one that made everyone stronger instead of making someone weaker. In the end, that might be humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy, not